From 3 stoppages at the 2023 Australian Grand Prix to the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix that lasted 4 hours, here are some of the most chaotic races in F1 history, starting things off with the 2023 Australian Grand Prix, or as I like to call it, the race that just wouldn't end. What started with fireworks ended in a whimper, and even the drivers were left scratching their heads at what the heck just happened. Max Verstappen came out on top for Red Bull, but it wasn't without a healthy dose of chaos and confusion. The race was stopped not once, not twice, but 3 times. The whole thing took a whopping 2.5 hours to conclude, but the real drama came towards the end, with a standing restart that quickly devolved into a full-blown car wreck. 6 cars collided with each other and careened off the track, causing yet another red flag, and leaving the FIA to dig through their rulebook for over 30 minutes to figure out what the heck to do next. Meanwhile, the sun sank lower in the sky, and everyone watching was left begging for mercy. Finally, the drivers were allowed to finish the race with 1 lap behind the safety car, and Verstappen came out on top. But let's be real, even he was probably like, what just happened? The whole thing was a mess, and even the drivers were left shaking their heads. Similar was the case for the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, a race that was as wild and unpredictable as it gets. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff called it a pulsating event, and he wasn't wrong. All 3 top teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, were vying for the top spot, and it was Hamilton who qualified ahead. But he wasn't content to just sit back and watch the action unfold. No sir, he chased Vettel in the opening laps, with teammate Bottas leading most of the race. And even though Hamilton's fastest laps were around 4 seconds slower than the Ferrari, he never gave up. That's what makes him a champion. And speaking of championship leads, it was the late safety car that really shook things up. Vettel made a mistake, and Bottas suffered a puncture in the latter stages of the race, giving Hamilton the opportunity to take the lead and edge Mercedes ahead in the standings. And that's not all the chaos. In a moment that had us all holding our breath, there was a massive crash between 2 Red Bull drivers, Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo. Thankfully, they were both unharmed, but they were reportedly fined by Red Bull for their collision. I guess that's one way to take your team rivalry to the next level, right? But was this the most drama-filled race ever? I don't know, cause the 2022 British Grand Prix definitely had more drama than a Shakespearean play. I mean, sure, Carlos Sainz won his first race, and that's a pretty big deal, but let's talk about the first 20 seconds of the race. That's where the real action was. We had Max Verstappen overtaking Sainz, which was exciting enough, but then behind them, chaos erupted. It was like a game of bumper cars gone wrong. Pierre Gasly nudged George Russell, who spun into Guan Yu Zhou, and suddenly there was a car flipping in the air like it was a circus act. It was a scary moment for everyone involved.
And is it Gasly that makes the contact?
Yeah.
Photographers were snapping away like paparazzi at a Hollywood red carpet, while fans watching on TV were left scratching their heads, wondering what the heck just happened. Thankfully, everyone involved in the crash came out relatively unscathed, but it was a reminder of just how dangerous this sport can be, and the chaos didn't stop there. Moments later, a group of protesters had invaded the track. Why'd they invade? Who knows? Maybe they were protesting the raining British weather. Maybe their tea had too much milk, but the crowd ended up causing Verstappen to slow the pack down and avoid a potential disaster. It was a bad day to be a racer, but not quite as bad as it was at the first Saudi Grand Prix. This race had it all: crashes, red flags, and a fierce battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. It all kicked off with a hefty crash for Mick Schumacher, which brought out the red flag. But that was just the beginning of the drama. In what can only be described as an ill-tempered weekend, Verstappen and Hamilton went head-to-head in a battle for the ages. At the first restart, Verstappen refused to budge, pushing Hamilton wide and letting Esteban Ocon take the lead. But Verstappen wasn't done yet. Oh no. On the next restart, he elbowed his way past both Ocon and Hamilton with a perfectly timed lunge. You could practically hear the cheers and jeers from the crowd as he made his move. Of course, there were more dramas to come. Another incident wiped out Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Nikita Mazepin, and George George Russell, resulting in yet another red flag. But that wasn't enough to stop Verstappen and Hamilton from going at it again. And then, in a move that left us all on the edge of our seats, Verstappen hit the brakes in front of Hamilton, going down the back straight. Hamilton went on to win the race, but I'll never forget that moment of pure adrenaline-fueled racing. And speaking of forever iconic races, the 2020 Italian GP was one for the ages. The legendary Monza circuit played host to a thrilling race that saw a shock winner in the form of Pierre Gasly, who managed to hold off the competition to take his maiden Formula One victory. It all started with a bang as Charles Leclerc crashed out on lap 25, prompting the safety car to come out. Gasly, who had not pitted yet, found himself in third place, and then he took advantage of the rules that allowed for tire changes during the safety car period. This move proved to be a game changer, as Gasly managed to restart the race without falling down the order. And boy did Gasly make the most of this opportunity. He pulled off some stunning overtakes and found himself in the lead when Lewis Hamilton had to serve a time penalty for pitting while the pit lane was closed. Talk about a lucky break. Gasly then faced intense pressure from Carlos Sainz in the closing stages, but he held his nerve and didn't put a wheel wrong. It was a nail-biting finish, but Gasly managed to cross the line in first place, taking his first ever F1 win. Overall, the 2020 Italian Grand Prix was a race to remember, unlike the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, which was a race so insane that even Hollywood couldn't have come up with it. Rain, crashes, safety cars, red flags, and a last lap pass for the win? Do I even need to say more? Jenson Button, the rain master, put on a clinic of wet weather driving, but he didn't have it easy. He collided with his teammate Lewis Hamilton early on and had to pit, only for a safety car to come out soon after. But that was just the beginning of the chaos. Rain kept pouring down, and the safety car kept coming out. It was like a never-ending parade. Then, after a 2-hour stoppage, the race resumed, and Button promptly crashed again, this time with Fernando Alonso. He was dead last, but he wasn't giving up. He fought his way through the field, passing cars left and right and making daring moves in the slippery conditions. The tension was palpable as the laps ticked down. Button had worked his way up to second place, but he was still over 2 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel, the then dominant world champion. But Button didn't let that deter him. He kept pushing, kept pressuring Vettel, until finally, on the last lap, Vettel cracked under the pressure, making a mistake that allowed Button to sweep past and take an incredible victory from last place on the grid. It was a race that left fans breathless and drivers exhausted. I mean, it lasted a total of 4 hours. I'd be pretty exhausted after driving down a highway for that amount of time, but for Jenson Button, it was a defining moment in his career, a true masterclass in wet weather driving, and a testament to his skill and determination. And those were some of the most chaotic races in F1 history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.